Hey, watch where you're going, old man. You got coffee all over my floor, the young barista snapped, his voice sharp with annoyance. He hadn't seen old Samuel Sam Ayres, 78, stumble slightly due to his prosthetic leg. Sam had tried to catch his balance, but his full coffee cup had slipped, splashing onto the pristine tile. The barista didn't apologize for nearly tripping him. Instead, he grabbed the cup from Sam's hand and slammed it onto the counter, more coffee sloshing out. "Clumsy oaf," he muttered. Sam, flustered and embarrassed, began to apologize. 5 minutes later, as Sam was trying to clean the mess with napkins, the coffee shop door opened. A young man in a crisp Navy service dress uniform strode in, his gaze immediately finding Sam, then hardening as he saw the spilled coffee and the barista's glare. If you believe respect for elders and veterans is paramount, type honor below. Samuel Sam Ayres was a man who carried his history quietly. At 78, his once robust frame was leaner, his steps made slower and more deliberate by the prosthetic leg he'd had since a landmine incident in Vietnam decades ago. He lived alone in a small apartment, his days marked by simple routines, his morning walk, more of a determined shuffle now, reading the newspaper cover to cover, and his daily visit to the Daily Grind, a trendy new coffee shop that had opened near his building. He liked their dark roast, and the brief outing was a welcome change of scenery. He always wore the same clean but faded attire, comfortable khaki trousers, a soft flannel shirt, and a baseball cap, often from a veterans organization, pulled low. He was unassuming, polite to a fault, and never caused trouble. He just wanted his coffee, a quiet corner to sit, and a moment to watch the world go by. Today, like any other Tuesday, he approached the counter of the Daily Grind. The shop was moderately busy, the air filled with the hiss of the espresso machine and the low hum of conversation. The barista on duty was a young man named Leo, barely out of his teens, known for his perpetually bored expression, his intricate tattoos, and his short temper with anyone who didn't fit his narrow definition of cool. Leo often seemed to resent older customers, treating them with a thinly veiled impatience. Sam ordered his usual, "Large black coffee, please." Leo took his money with a sigh, slammed the change down, and began to prepare the drink with exaggerated slowness, clearly more interested in a text conversation on his phone. When the coffee was finally ready, Leo slid it across the counter with such force that some of it slopped over the side. "Here," he said, not making eye contact. Sam carefully picked up the hot cup. As he turned to find a seat, Leo, moving quickly to grab a new carton of milk from under the counter without looking up, inadvertently stepped back directly into Sam's path. Sam, whose balance wasn't what it once was, especially with the prosthetic, stumbled badly. He instinctively tried to steady himself, reaching for the counter, but his full coffee cup tilted precariously. A significant amount of hot coffee splashed onto the floor near Leo's feet, narrowly missing the barista himself, but creating a noticeable puddle on the polished concrete. "Hey, watch it, old man," Leo yelled, jumping back, finally looking up from his phone, his face contorted in anger. "You trying to scald me? Look at this mess." Sam, flustered and embarrassed by the spill and the sudden shouting, began, "I'm so sorry, son. You stepped back and I—" Leo cut him off, his voice rising. "I stepped back? You stumbled into me. Now there's coffee everywhere. Are you blind or just clumsy?" He snatched the half-empty cup from Sam's unsteady hand with a rough jerk, nearly making him spill the rest, and slammed it down on the counter with a loud crack, more coffee splashing out. "God, some people shouldn't be allowed out," Leo muttered, loud enough for several nearby customers to hear. He grabbed a wet floor sign and plunked it down aggressively near the spill. He made no move to help Sam, offered no apology for his own part in the incident, just glared at the old man as if he were a public nuisance. Other customers stared, some with disapproval at Leo, others with mild amusement or indifference. No one stepped forward. Sam felt a familiar heat rise in his cheeks, the sting of public humiliation, the weariness of being dismissed and disrespected. Sam, his hands trembling slightly, reached for the napkins on the counter, intending to try and clean up the spill himself. I truly am sorry for the mess," he said again, his voice quiet. "It was an accident." "Yeah, well, your accident is my problem now," Leo snapped, turning his back on Sam to pointedly start wiping down the already clean espresso machine, pointedly ignoring the spill at his feet and the elderly man trying to manage it. Some people have no consideration. Humiliated and shaken, Sam bent down stiffly, his prosthetic making the movement awkward, and began dabbing at the puddle of coffee with a handful of flimsy napkins. It was a futile effort. The spill was too large. He felt the eyes of other patrons on him, a mixture of pity and perhaps judgment. He just wanted to disappear. He'd lost his coffee, been publicly berated, and now felt like a clumsy fool. He thought about just leaving, but his ingrained sense of responsibility, even for an accident largely not his fault, kept him there, trying to mitigate the damage. He fumbled in his pocket for money to offer for the spilled coffee, though the thought of giving Leo another dime was galling. After a few minutes of this demeaning charade, as Sam was still trying to sop up the coffee, the bell over the coffee shop door jingled. A young man entered, tall and well-built, wearing the crisp, immaculate service dress white uniform of a United States Navy petty officer first class. His gaze swept the shop, professional and observant. He had an air of quiet confidence and authority that seemed to instantly command attention. His eyes found Sam, still crouched awkwardly by the spill, dabbing with napkins, while Leo ostentatiously ignored him from behind the counter. The petty officer's expression, initially neutral, hardened instantly. He strode purposefully toward Sam, his polished shoes clicking sharply on the tiled floor. The young petty officer reached Sam in a few quick strides. He knelt beside the elderly man, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Dad, what happened here? Are you all right?" Sam looked up, surprised and relieved to see his son, Michael Ayers, who was on a short leave from his naval base and had arranged to meet him for coffee. "Michael, I just spilled my coffee, son. Clumsy of me." Michael's eyes took in the scene, his father on the floor with napkins, the large coffee spill, the aggressive wet floor sign, and the barista Leo, who was now watching them with a mixture of defiance and dawning apprehension. "You spilled it? Or did someone help you spill it?" Michael asked quietly, his gaze flicking towards Leo, then back to his father. "It was an accident," Sam repeated, reluctant to make a fuss now that his son was here. But Michael knew his father. He saw the tremor in his hands, the lingering flush of humiliation on his cheeks. He stood up, helping his father to his feet. "Stay here, Dad." Michael then walked directly to the counter, his uniformed presence suddenly making the trendy coffee shop feel very small, and Leo look very young and foolish. "I'm Petty Officer Ayers," he said to Leo, his voice calm but carrying an unmistakable edge of steel. "This gentleman is my father, Sergeant Samuel Ayers, U.S. Army, retired. He tells me there was an accident with his coffee." Leo, faced with a uniformed military man clearly not intimidated by him, lost some of his earlier bluster. Yeah. He stumbled and spilled it everywhere. Made a huge mess." "Did he now?" Michael said, his eyes unwavering. "Or did you perhaps step back into him without looking, causing him to stumble, and then, instead of assisting a disabled veteran, you yelled at him, snatched his cup, and left him to clean up your shared accident?" Michael's reconstruction of events was uncannily accurate, based on years of knowing his father's quiet nature and his own keen observation. Leo paled. Several customers who had witnessed the entire incident nodded in agreement with Michael's assessment. He was in the way," Leo stammered, his defense weak. "In the way of common decency, perhaps," Michael retorted sharply. "My father is a combat veteran who lost his leg serving this country. He deserves respect, not ridicule and abuse from someone whose idea of a tough day is running out of oat milk." The shop had gone completely silent. All eyes were on the confrontation at the counter. Michael Ayers, in his crisp Navy uniform, was an imposing figure, not just physically, but morally. He wasn't shouting, but the quiet intensity of his anger was palpable. "You not only failed to assist him," Michael continued, his voice low and dangerous. "You humiliated him. You mocked him. I saw the way you slammed his cup down." Leo was now trembling, his earlier arrogance replaced by stark fear. He looked around for support, but found none. Even his coworker was suddenly very busy polishing an already gleaming machine at the far end of the counter. The store manager, who had been in the back office, emerged, drawn by the sudden silence and the sight of a uniformed serviceman at her counter. "Is there a problem here, petty officer?" she asked, her voice betraying nervousness. "Yes, ma'am, there is," Michael replied, turning to her, his demeanor still firm but slightly more measured. "Your employee, Leo, just verbally abused and humiliated my father, a disabled combat veteran, after contributing to an accident that caused him to spill his coffee. He then left my father, who uses a prosthetic leg, to clean the mess himself. This is not just poor customer service. It is a disgusting display of disrespect." The manager looked horrified. She shot a furious glare at Leo, who seemed to shrink under her gaze. "Leo, is this true?" Leo mumbled something incoherent. "I want two things," Michael stated clearly. "First, a sincere, direct apology from him," he nodded at Leo, "to my father. Second, I want to know what steps you are going to take to ensure this kind of disrespectful behavior, especially towards elderly or disabled patrons and veterans, never happens again in your establishment." The manager, seeing the steel in Michael's eyes and the supportive murmurs from other customers who had witnessed the event, knew she was in a serious situation. "Petty Officer Ayers, please accept my deepest apologies on behalf of the Daily Grind. This is completely unacceptable. Leo," she turned to the now cowering barista, "you will apologize to Mr. Ayers immediately, and then you and I will be having a very serious discussion in the back office about your future here." Leo, thoroughly cowed, stumbled over to where Sam was still standing, now supported by Michael, and mumbled a barely audible apology. Sam just nodded, his expression unreadable. Michael wasn't quite finished. "Ma'am," he said to the manager, "an apology is a start, but this isn't just about my father. It's about how your business treats all its patrons, especially those who might be vulnerable." He paused, then played his final card. "My father was meeting me here. I'm Petty Officer Michael Ayers, attached to the Public Affairs Office, Naval Base Kitsap. I often write human interest stories for Navy-affiliated publications and websites. I also have rather active social media channels that many service members and their families follow. I'm sure they'd be very interested to hear about the kind of welcome a disabled Vietnam veteran receives at the Daily Grind." The manager's face went even paler. The implied threat of public exposure, especially to a vast military-connected audience, was clear and potent. No, Petty Officer, that won't be necessary," she said quickly. "We value all our customers, especially our veterans. We will be implementing immediate retraining for all staff on customer service, disability awareness, and veteran sensitivity. We would also like to offer your father complimentary coffee for life and make a significant donation in his name to a local veterans charity of his choice." Michael considered her offer, his expression unyielding. "The donation is a good step. The retraining is essential. As for the coffee, I think my father will decide where he feels comfortable having his coffee from now on." He turned to Sam. "Dad, let's get out of here. I know a little diner down the street that makes a great cup, and the waitresses actually smile." Sam nodded, a small, weary smile finally touching his own lips. He let Michael guide him out of the Daily Grind, leaving behind a chastened manager, a terrified barista, and a coffee shop full of patrons who had just witnessed a powerful lesson in respect, delivered not by a general this time, but by a son in a Navy uniform standing up for his father's honor. The story of Leo the barista and Petty Officer Ayers quickly became local lore. Leo was reportedly moved to dishwashing duties indefinitely. The Daily Grind did implement new training, and their veterans' welcome sign suddenly seemed much more prominent. Because sometimes the most effective counteroffensive isn't about rank or firepower, but about the unshakable resolve of a loved one defending the dignity of someone who has already sacrificed so much. And a well-placed word from a person in uniform can often shut down disrespect faster than any corporate policy. Subscribe to this channel if you believe in standing up for our veterans, and that a simple cup of coffee should always come with a side of respect.